The viewpoints expressed on Night Fright are not necessarily those of the host, the staff, the sponsors, or the affiliate stations. Tonight's program may contain graphic themes or images. Viewer discretion is advised.
There is a time for question. There is a time for answers. There is a time to challenge. There is a time to speculate. There is a time for change. There is a time for truth. The time is now. Welcome to Night Fright, your voice in the dark for paranormal and conspiracy. And now your host, Brent Hall.
Showtime. Welcome to the show, folks. I'm excited tonight. I am pumped. All night long, we're going to be talking about a book called The Haunted House Diaries. William J. Hall is returning. He's got a brand new book out. You will remember William was here several months ago talking about his previous encounter with the haunted, and he's back once again. And this book is Ghosts, Aliens, and Holes in Space and Time. The book is called The Haunted House Diaries, the true story of a quiet Connecticut town. Gotta love Connecticut. Quiet Connecticut town in the center of a paranormal mystery. Now, just let me read the preamble for it. Nestled deep in Litchfield Hills, Connecticut, a 1790 farmhouse sits near the epicenter of a paranormal commotion. The family that resides there regularly encounters its own ancestors and strangers, human and non-human, who seemingly occupy the same physical space in our world while remaining in their own parallel worlds. When famous ghost hunters Ed and Lorraine Warren investigated, they dubbed it Ghost Central. Okay, we're going to get into this right away, folks, with William J. Hall, The Haunted House Diaries. Welcome back, my friend, and welcome back with a scary, scary book. Congratulations on this one.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Brent.
You're very welcome. Okay, let's dive in right away. Can you describe this creepy old 1790 farmhouse? It's way out in the bush, I imagine, with very little around it. Made in the 1790s. I'm suspecting it's kind of a pre-Victorian era type of house. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's actually a very beautiful area up in Litchfield Hills in the Torrington area, and the home was built in 1793, and it's described as they call it a vernacular homestead, whatever that means. But it's been added on to. Originally was actually a store, so the kitchen actually was a general store, which is fascinating. And the family, Donna's family, has lived there for 6 generations, and as far back as anybody remembers, there's been paranormal happenings there. And in fact, in that whole area, there's a long, long history because there's paranormal flap there. So there's a long history of things going on in that whole area. Some people may have heard of Dudleytown. That's actually within that area too, which has long been written about. So it's kind of like a paranormal crossroads, or as my good friend Paulino says, a paranormal circus, or the Connecticut Skinwalker Ranch, he calls it. So it's kind of your one-stop shopping mall for the paranormalists, I would say.
Folks, if you're just joining us, settle in, because you're in for a creepy night of great tales from this brand new book by William Hall called The Haunted House Diaries. Get the coffee going, get the tea going, get a beverage of your choice going, kick back in your most favorite chair, get ready to settle in and have a great ride with us tonight. William, is there many floors to this house? Is there an upstairs, a downstairs, and the ever-present basement?
Yes, there's 2 floors and the basement. Of course, the basement being very fascinating, and also containing one of the most active rooms in the house, which is the workshop. But yeah, it's a pretty large house, which of course makes it a challenge to heat for the family in the winter. But it's been, it's just been in the family for so many generations. It is a very beautiful house and beautiful, beautiful land there. And there's quite a lot of land in the backyard that goes back, quite a way. So it is a very nice area.
Now, just to paint the picture completely for the listeners, is the house, the basement in the house, is it a dirt basement? Very often houses back then were just built on stilts. Is it a cement basement? The surrounding walls of the house, is it a wooden structure, a limestone structure perhaps?
It's wooden, and the basement, yes, is dirt. And it's, you can see the old hand-hewn beams and the tree, the tree barks and the bricks, and some of that is shown in the book. But yeah, it's definitely has those old touches to it, which makes it even a bit more creepier. But
did you get up to the house at all yourself?
Oh yeah, I was there many times. Stayed over, did overnights there, and the family's wonderful. So they've adopted me despite their. That's probably their biggest horror they ever experienced in the house was me. But no, they're a wonderful family, and Donna is quite curious about it all. So it was a nice environment because it's a place where you can go and investigate, and there's always something different there, and you're always going to get something there happening and on tape or on photo, and the nice thing is they're not in a panic mode. If you went there and they were having a problem, you'd be rude to try to gather evidence and that kind of stuff. Whereas this is they're not having that. Luckily, most of it has not been quote unquote malevolent. I mean, I think a lot of people probably would have interpreted it that way.
What happened to make you say that? To make you say that?
Just as far as there's things certainly that have scared them, large noises and stuff, but I don't consider those necessarily quote unquote malevolent. I think that probably is why the house has been treated them well, so to speak. I think they're the perfect family to have there. If you had the similar family like the Goodins in Lindley Street, it'd probably be a disaster. But a lot of people that are in a haunted house, they hear noise and whatnot. They think evil, they think demons, and that kind of perpetuates what goes through the quote unquote door or portal. So in this case, I think they took it objectively for what it was. When they heard noises and that kind of thing and footsteps or whatever, they didn't just think, oh, look, it's Satan walking upstairs. They really were more objective to it. But I think a lot of people do interpret those things as just being malevolent or quote unquote evil. And I think we throw that term around a lot. But noises or bangings in a wall could certainly be frightening. But I think it's rash to go and call them and deem them evil without really understanding that. So. And, I think this family really never did that. Certainly there were a few negative things over the years, but mostly, as Donna describes, and I've heard this from a lot of people, in haunted houses, is that what happens isn't as scary as just kind of not knowing when something's going to happen. It's kind of not knowing when there's going to be a noise or, that kind of thing happening. Because the phenomena itself often is, over with, rather quickly.
Okay, let's just back up a bit then, and we'll get into this from the very beginning. Can you describe the family to us?
Yes. Well, they're living there now is Don and Bob, husband and wife. There's been 6 generations in that household, so they had quite a lot of people in there at one time. The grandmother, the mother, and extended family was living there. So there's been, her ancestors have been, in the house for 6 generations. Right now, it's just Don and Bob living in the house. The children have all had experiences, but are on their own. In fact, the daughter Michelle would live there again, but won't go in the basement alone. So everybody kind of reacts to it in their, their own way, depending on, their experience there. But Don and Bob are there, and they're not, if they were scared or horrified, they certainly would have moved out a long time ago. And I think a lot of families would have. But to Donna, she was born at the hospital and brought right back to that house. And to her, the paranormal was the normal. It was only when she went to friends' houses to have sleepovers that she realized that, her house is different. So, I think that has a lot to do with it too. And they're just the right kind of people, I think, for it. Like I said, I think, as we know that, the type of atmosphere in the house certainly determines what kinds of things are going to get pulled in there. And, they're just the perfect people to be in that house.
You said something before about young Michelle. You have to tell us why Michelle won't go in the basement.
Just because it's creepy. I mean, she's throughout her growing up, she's experienced numerous phenomena in there, which is sprinkled throughout the diary. In fact, Donna was scared and intrigued and everything, but when Michelle was just a baby, something quote unquote was even playing with her in the crib, which she later identified in a picture as being a member of the family. So that was, and again, it's like, what do you think of it? You're happy she's not crying anymore, but then on the other hand, you're a little weirded out by, what is she playing with, or what does have her attention, kind of thing. But in Michelle, is just that the basement is, you're down there, you're apart from everything, you're alone, and she knows that it's an active area. I think the one thing that really frightened her the most was one of the recordings that was taken in the kitchen, where this voice said "lay down," and it was just a real creepy voice. And ever since then, she didn't want to hear any recordings, because Donna would put out different recorders and try to gather different information.
What type of
But
things?
that did it for.
That did it for. What type of things were caught on tape?
All sorts of things, banging sounds, lots of voices. One of the funniest in my mind is Donna sneezes and you hear "bless you," you hear "bless you" going, in a whisper. But we caught different conversations going on, and it appears Shane Serway, who's kind of what I call the trifecta of investigators. He had a near-death experience, grew up in a haunted house, and is Native American, but he was there and critical to the investigation. He brought a ghost box, and we were asking questions, and I always ask questions about 3 times because I have so little. I'm still a diehard skeptic, as I should be, and but the name that the person gave was Harry, and I asked her last name, and said Wilcox 3 times, and I talked to Don the next morning. This was early in the investigation, and learned that Harry Wilcox was the brother of William Wilcox, who bought that land originally where the house was built. And of course, then the town records confirmed that that's who bought the land, etc. And Harry had lived in the house at one time. So quite interesting. You don't know what to make of all of it, but it's that's one of the fascinating things, is to gather all this stuff and then have some fun really discussing all the different possibilities of what it can be. And that, to me, is what was so neat about this case, and doing this book in particular.
William Hall's with us tonight, folks. He's back. Yes, he is. And he's got a new book out called The Haunted House Diaries. www.nightfrightshow.com, www.nightfrightshow.com. As always, click on tonight's guest book covers. There will be several of them there, and please do order this book. It's, it's late in the summer at this point, and fall will be upon us. Not a bad time to read a ghost story book, without question, and one that is written like a diary. Virtually, somebody has made a diary of all the occurrences that have gone on. I'm going to ask William now. William, in the flyer that I was sent with some information about the book, it says something about a grandson with a not so invisible friend. Can you tell us that story?
Yes, certainly. And I hope you got a copy of the book. Did you get a copy of the book?
No, but that's okay.
Oh, all right. Yeah, we're going to get you one. Geez, that's just not right. But anyhow, yes. Yeah, it's a fascinating story. The grandson, even before he can walk, would toddle over to the bathroom and point up at the ceiling, and was acting as if he was engaged in interacting with someone. And they literally would have to pick him up and bring him back into the middle of the living room. The grandmother Donna and her daughter Michelle would have to literally pick him up and bring him back. And then he when he just was starting to talk, he would also, he'd point at the ceiling and he'd go Ashwa, and which you couldn't quite make out what he was saying. But later on, when he was starting to talk, he explained that he had, later on he explained he had a friend named Ashwar, and she was a little girl in a blue dress, and she was in a car accident with her mother, and she died, and she was stuck there to observe out in the tree in the front of the yard. And so that was pretty bizarre. Of course, the family didn't encourage him to talk about it, but of course knew that there was all these things going on in the house. They knew that he wasn't just, just imagining things. And he used to put toys out around the tree. And, they'd ask, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm putting toys out for Ashwar." And Paulina was there in 2010 and was talking to the grandson and happened to say, "Well, is Ashwar here now?" And the grandson said, "Oh yeah, Ash," pointing out the window, said, "Ashwar's, right up in that tree." And so Paul went out in the pitch dark and filmed with his infrared camera, made a video, and caught Ashwar in video, which looks like kind of this serpent tadpole kind of thing, coming down in front of the tree and then changing into or going into like a mist of white. It's just the most bizarre thing you've ever seen. And we've had Mark D'Antonio, who's the audio video expert from the Mutual UFO Network. Yeah, he looked at all the photos that went in the book, and also he looked at all the photos before they went in the book and videos, and that was one that was quite perplexing. I mean, nobody was smoking. There was nothing really that could have caused it. It certainly wasn't a squirrel or anything else you can imagine. And the neat thing is they've shown people this video who are, don't believe in the paranormal at all, and that, you can see their faces where they start to think maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And when the thing turns into mist, they're just like, "What the heck was that?" And so that video also can be seen. It's actually one of the things in the bonus page, with the with the book. But interesting about that is there's a fellow named Gregory Harold who in the 1970s was trying to catch a vandal and put an infrared camera out there and ended up catching these things that look just like Ashwar. So me and him caught up, and I interviewed him for the book, and he sent me an hour and a half of video of these things, these Ashwar, for lack of a better term, that have that he's been studying, their behavior, and he thinks they're aliens, but he doesn't know, of course. Nobody really knows what they are, but quite fascinating that for a period of, I think it was about 2 years, that he's been filming these things. And I was just amazed at how they look just like Ashwar. And so it's definitely a great example of just the bizarre things that happen in this area and in this house.
How did Ed and Lorraine Warren come to be get involved with this particular story? Did somebody reach out to them? Was it a family member, perhaps, or a friend?
Yes, it was Donna. They had seen them, and of course, Donna, being always curious as far as what's going on in the house, had called them and described the kinds of things that they had experienced, and Ed and Lorraine stopped over, and Lorraine went through the house, and Lorraine identified there's a bathroom upstairs, which originally was a bedroom, and Lorraine went into the bathroom and said, I'm picking up that actually this is a bedroom that you were in with your sister or whatever. So she was very accurate when it comes to that. I'll give her that. And they called the house, Ghost Central. Lorraine said the house is completely full. There's just tons of people and activity there. But she did say she didn't sense anything that was overtly negative, and said that, you're okay, basically was the message. And they actually ended up filming a commercial for, I think, a Japanese television special in the house. They had asked the family, and Donna said okay. And it's funny because Bob's quite the practical joker, Donna's husband. And these Japanese film crew came in, and they were very afraid. And one of them was in the bathroom, and Bob is flicking the light switch, and he hears a bunch of noise in the bathroom. Oh yeah, Bob's just
Bob.
he's really bad, but great guy. But yeah, he has a long history of being a practical joker at work and stuff. So he's just a great guy, great sense of humor. But yeah, he once he saw that they were so frightened, he couldn't help it but flick the light switch anytime any of them went in the bathroom. But so they actually filmed a promo thing in the house there. But that was their involvement of how they stopped over, and made Donna feel good that that she was understood, and that somebody kind of knew and could identify with that, and that's how they got involved.
Okay.
And that's how Paulino, my good friend Paulino, got involved many years later, as Donna had read one of his books and said, geez, I think your theories might be what's happening at my house. And that's kind of how he got involved back in 2005. So,
and I'm just curious now, because you said there's nothing malevolent there, so it sounds like there's a history of family that's just hanging around the house. Is there good cooking going on, or is there something that's keeping them there and not moving on to the next level, so to speak?
It's definitely got to be the cooking. No.
Or the guests that come to visit the office.
Right. There's humans and non-humans. There's small boy-like figures with elongated ears. There's Bigfoot sightings. There's phenomena that's more indicative of UFOs, even within the house. So there's a variety of phenomena going on. There's also what appears to be, there's horse sounds. There's things that appear to be activity in the general store, like general store customers coming in, and the cutting of fabric and things of that nature. So I think there's just a variety of things going on, and that's where we beg the question of are ghosts spirits of the dead, or is quantum physics with the multiple universe theory the way to go, or is it a mix of the two? And there's a lot going on here. There's some interesting good things going on, which would relate to ancestors, and yet there's plenty of non-human things going on in the area too. Aside from the house, there's other houses that are haunted in the area, and there's missing time in the area, and Bigfoot sightings go many, many years back in that area. So it's just a whole, matter of fact, Paul calls it the Connecticut Skinwalker case, but it's like a paranormal crossroads. It's got a bit of everything going on there. And I say not malevolent, but if the diary was written differently, and the book was written differently. I mean, you know, you could say, you can call it Demonsville too, because some people would say it's all demons. So, you know, I think that it is a lot to it too, is how you interpret it in the context. And that was the exciting thing about the book is, you know, having it in three parts, where it's a diary, it's, you know, the phenomenon, the flap, and then it's a lot of the investigation and discussion. And to me, that's exciting to discuss, you know, what these things are like and what they might mean, and you know, the different possibilities. And a lot of it is, you know, we make a lot of assumptions about the paranormal, but you know, some of them may be really wrong, and others might be exactly what we think they are. You know, the obvious thing.
William, your previous book was about a poltergeist case, a very famous one. And I'm just wondering,
Yes.
Was there any parallels that you noticed between that book and your investigation that took place with this book? Any similarities at all?
Well, I would say that, I guess you can say the similarity was that multiple places were affected, because that was the case in both areas, which I think is now more of the general thinking for investigators, that, you know, if one thinks to look, that it's not always, but quite often is more than one house. And I think the other similarity is, you know, the frequency you send out is what you get back. You know, kind of sounds kind of corny, but you know, Lindley Street is a very dysfunctional family, and so you know, it was a poltergeist experience, whereas this wasn't that kind of thing. They didn't have that dysfunction. I think if they did have that dysfunction, there could certainly have been the same possibility of a poltergeist. Certainly you know, the door was there, or portal, or whatever you want to call it. So the means were there to get the necessary parasite or entity involved. But I think what wasn't there wasn't the proper frequency. So I think the similarities were the fact that they both got back what they sent out, I guess is what you'd say, you know.
The JFK Assassination, the definitive book by Brent Holland. From inside the Oval Office to Daily Plaza, first-person witness accounts. Order yours right now. nightfrightshow.com.
Folks, we're speaking with William Hall tonight. Of course, fans of the show will know William's work very well. He was here several months ago to talk about his previous book, The World's Most Haunted House. And that's in the archives, www.nightfrightshow. The shows there are free, of course. And the book we're discussing tonight was just scaring, some of the stories here are scaring the bejesus out of me, is called The Haunted House Diaries, the true story of a quiet Connecticut town in the center of a paranormal mystery. And as always, www.nightfrightshow. You can just click on William's book covers and order them from the comfort of your own home. As the sun gets lower and lower in the sky tonight, I'm thinking it would be a great read for a night tonight as well. I want to go back to something. You know, numerology plays a big part, a much bigger part when loved ones have passed on and they're trying to reach you. I've done whole shows on this. And oddly enough, you had spoke about Bob and Donna. Donna's the wife. And it says here, Donna awoke to a phenomena at precisely 12:42 a.m., an eerie correspondence to her house number 1242. Now, I've had the same thing happen to me. So right now I'm getting goosebumps, and thank you, because tonight I'll be sleeping with the nightlight on, William. So thank you for that.
All right. Scooby-Doo nightlight, right? I mean, then, you know, I would assume. No?
It's gotta be. Can you explain what happened there?
Well, you know, there's a variety of phenomena that was relating to that number. It was just the times when Donna would wake, and then I would interview her sister and her daughter, and they all had stories about that time. Even her sister had a story about, you know, counting the cash register and it coming out to exactly that. Now, you try to determine, okay, is it just people focused on that? And in some cases, you'd say, yeah, that's all it is. Of course, in this house, knowing all that goes on, it would seem like a no-brainer as a way of ancestors or people who want to get your attention to use that as one of the means to call attention. And so that was a frequent time when different phenomena took, and not necessarily the same in a pattern, but whether it was a noise or footsteps or something that happened that would jar you awake. And Donna said, you look at the time and it would be the same all the time, or not all the time, but quite a lot of the time, and certainly more than would be normal. So that is a fascinating part to it that's sprinkled throughout the diary entries and throughout the years.
Did she feel perhaps a message was trying to be conveyed to her?
Well, she struggles with that. She always tries to discern, who it may be and what it's about. And I think there was a few instances that she had a pretty good handle on who she thinks it was. When her and her husband were having an argument about a bill and the ashtray that belonged to, an ancestor that lived in the house, came down between them, kind of breaking up the argument. That was an example. And so there's a few different things based on the personalities of people who lived in there that she did equate to people who had lived in the house before. In fact, there's an image in the book in the colored picture section of the book of their Minnie Gray, who was Donna's maternal great grandmother, and that was the person who she took Donna's grandmother in after she was left on the doorstep, and she also took Donna's grandfather from the orphanage. And Minnie told Donna's mother that she would gladly give up her life if it meant Donna would be okay, because she had an illness then. And upon finding out Donna would be fine, Minnie sat down in the rocker and died. And her figure was seen in the photo in the mirror. And what was fascinating is I interviewed everybody separately, and they all instantly said, "Oh my God, that's Minnie Gray in the mirror." Even Bob, who normally doesn't really want any part of it, he's like, whatever, But he looked at it, he said, "Oh, Minnie Gray, no question." So that to me was fascinating, that they all were so positive so quickly, without me saying anything or leading them in any way. And it makes sense based on some of the stories you read in the book. So it's just a fascinating variety of things that happen here.
You had mentioned a couple of things before as well I wanted to touch upon, because I'm hearing this more and more. Whenever there's some kind of paranormal activity, it seems in a remote area more than anywhere else, there seems to be UFO activity, and oddly enough, Bigfoot activity or some kind of strange animals. I was wondering if you could touch upon perhaps a UFO incident that may have happened around there.
Yes, and just to that degree, before I do that, it's a great point you're bringing up, because I mean, many years ago it was UFO people didn't want to talk to the ghost people because they were a little stupid, and ghost people didn't want to talk to UFO people because they weren't spiritual, they're scientific and stuck up, and both of them didn't want to talk to the Bigfoot people because they were just crazy. But but I'm being a little.
Wait till we get the JFK people in. I get on the show sometimes. Anyways,
there we go. Right, and I'm being a little facetious, but now many years later, and it's been this way for a while, we're realizing that, hey, as Paulino says, maybe this is why Bigfoot's so good at hide and seek, and maybe that we really can't look at these things in silos, that we need to look at it holistically, because we're experiencing this thing basically using the same mechanics, using whether it's parallel world intersects or whatever you want to call it, door, portal, window, whatever. And that, whether it's Bigfoot or UFOs or ancestors or cryptids or entities of a variety of species, that we're seeing this is all kind of part of the same paranormal, not to be looked at in silos. So I think, and there's been many, many years of UFO sightings in this area, the triangular ones and, odd moving and it is a long, long history. Matter of fact, this flap area, as Paul and Benny, have identified it originally, appears to start kind of, right where the Hudson Valley UFO sightings and area, was, and coming up to Connecticut in the Litchfield Hills area. So, that's kind of the area where it happened. And Paul, as well as Mark D'Antoni, on different instances, and other witnesses I interviewed have been chased out of the farmland up in Goshen by our military guards. And Paul looked into it further, and through some connections he knows, he was in the military, and he was told to back off. So we definitely think that there's a secret base there, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were there to study the energy and or at least the UFO sightings and things that are going on in the area that have been so prevalent for so many years. And now, I mean, Donna took me up that way, and now that all that farmland is now all fenced off. But before, it had a very bizarre metal sheet over where the farmhouse was, and they ended up building another farmhouse. And it's hard to tell who actually owns it. I mean, there's owners listed, but it's not clear, of course, with the way they can set up companies and things like that. And it's just land sitting there now, and it's all fenced off. So, we do think there's something going on there as far as an underground military base. And there's, the stories about what we're able to find out, in the book about that too. But given the UFO sightings in particular, it certainly makes sense. And of course, we used Mark D'Antonio, who was, the audio video expert for Mutual UFO Network, and he examined all the photos and videos in the book, as well as he had his own missing time incident and implant taken out, in that area too. Missing time incident when he was a little boy in that area. So he was just a great asset to have on board too, especially because anytime I had a sighting to run by him or whatnot, he was able to look it up and tell me, if it was legit or not, or what it was. So, I try to be really careful in what I put, in writing, trying to make it so at least we can say something is unknown versus, somebody looking at it and saying, well, I'm a photographer and this is a reflection. Try to do as good a job as I could. So I'm a firm believer in getting the experts that you need to do that. So.
Yeah, it's a rarity these days that people will find that person to give it authentication, especially, with all the rash of YouTube videos and this is a ghost, and really, you see the car going by outside and it's really not a ghost. Or I'm trying to think of another example I was just looking at where somebody said it was a UFO and it was a falling leaf, for God's sake, out of focus.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So it's really nice that you had somebody that you were working with in tandem to give you that validation and stamp of authenticity, and I think that shows in your work as well, William.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Not just out to make a buck. William Hall.
Yeah, and being a magician.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, being a magician, it's just a natural for me. I certainly don't want to get caught.
Well, it's not only that, but because you are
something stupid.
We've discussed this before in the previous show, but because you also bring that instinct to look for the what's the word I'm trying to, the people that are just trying to make a buck off of it. You're able to look at it and say, no, I know exactly how they're doing that. So that adds another layer of validation and authenticity for me if you can come out and say, I don't know. If that made any sense, what I just said.
Right. No, it makes perfect sense. And that's why I believe, I think if you're looking at a fortune teller, you need a magician, because a layperson wouldn't know the difference. If you're looking at something where somebody might be mentally ill, you need, a medical expert or psychologist or psychiatrist. if you're looking at photos or videos, you need an optical expert, somebody who really knows, and whatever it happens to be. And there was some greats in paranormal research that said, I'm a paranormal investigator. My job is really to get all the proper experts involved. And I thought that was a very wise approach, knowing that you need the right people, at the right time. And who you need, of course, depends on the nature of it. Obviously, as you gain experience, certain things aren't. I see less of the fraud and more of the misinterpretation. Unless you're talking UFOs, I think you get some fraud in UFOs, but I think a lot of it I see is not fraud. It's just people misinterpreting things.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. Did you get a chance to walk around the grounds at all and perhaps speak with neighbors to get their interpretations of what is not only going on at the house that you're investigating, so to speak, or writing about, but also in their own lives?
Oh yes, yeah. I have some of the other. I interviewed some of the other people in the area who have phenomena in their houses. Certainly nothing to the degree of this farmhouse that has everything, but certainly they have their own phenomena. Um, yes, I did, and I stayed numerous nights at the house and back and forth investigating that, as well as bringing in Paul and Ben, of course, who have been involved since 2005, and I brought in Shane Sarway, who I mentioned, and Mark D'Antonio stopped by a few times. So we had a nice little team there, and we brought in cameras that would take three consecutive photos with the time on them and whatnot when they detect movement, as well as audio that would go up, recorders that would go off when sounds were heard. So we did that. We actually still want to do more of it because every time you go there, there's, as Ben aptly said, Ben Eno, he said every time you go there, there's something new, completely new. It's like I said, a one-stop shopping mall for the paranormal. So it's a great place to go. You just have to be careful because Donna's a good cook and she'll make fried Oreos or something. So you got to really watch that. That's the scariest thing. You can gain some weight there. So
you let me know the next time you're going down, and I'll come and carry a camera for you or something.
there you go. Yeah.
Okay, William, when you were there, when you stayed over, I have to ask you this question. Anything out of the ordinary happened to you? I know you caught stuff on film, but outside of that?
Yes. And not the first time. The first night I stayed over was, I'll tell you quick, but it's a funny story. I stayed up relatively late, 11, 12 or whatever, and then I just completely went to sleep. And Shane was there, and in the morning, he told me, there's all these noises and things happen, and you can't believe I didn't wake up. And of course, I felt like a sap because here I am in a haunted house, supposed to be investigating, and I just fell asleep and slept like a baby. So it did prove to me that people had asked me, were you scared? And I said, well, evidently not, because I just went to sleep and that was it. Didn't wake up no matter what. So, but yeah, over time I did. I was there at a separate meeting alone with Donna. We were in the basement, and I went over to one wall, and it really felt like the best way I could describe it is a bubble of energy, and it felt like there were hundreds of people there. And I asked Donna, do you feel anything? She said, no, I never felt anything over there. She said, but it's funny you say that because, Paul and Ben went over there and they said almost exactly what you said. So I was fascinated by that because, I'm not sensitive at all in any way. You got to hit me over the head with a frying pan. So the place has to really be active for me to figure something out. Hopefully I'll become sensitive the more I do this, but I'm the perfect person to send in there because if I experience it, then everybody will. But Shane later said that he believes that you feel that because on the other end was other side of the wall was the workshop, which is the most active area, and he's very good at bringing in instruments to make sure that it's nothing electrical, nothing in the systems, not because there of course are various things that can make you feel dizzy or things of that nature that aren't paranormal at all. So we always had to constantly eliminate those things. Even though we knew there was genuine phenomena in the house, you still could, for example, take a picture where there's a reflection. Yeah, even though you know there's phenomena in the house. So again, every step of the way, we tried to make sure that we were, diligent in doing that. But that was a fascinating area. And the other thing was we were setting up cameras, and this I felt, luckily we got some, good pictures and evidence. But we're Shane had just set up the cameras, and I saw on the monitor this black shadow figure cross the hallway, and Shane saw it too. And I was so excited. It was the first thing I saw, and I said, Shane, I can't believe we got that on film. And he said, no, I'm not recording yet. And I was like, oh God, but luckily we did get the picture of the little girl's head in the basement. And we got a picture of this thing outside that was moving across, which that was great to have those 3 consecutive photos, because we were able to eliminate the fact that, okay, it wasn't a car, wasn't headlights, wasn't frost, I had to go through all of that. And so it was very interesting photos. And then we set up stuff in the basement, and about 20 minutes later went down to check it. And of course, nobody had been down there. And there was a cabinet that was open. And Shane said, yeah, they don't want us in the workshop. And so I closed it. It was like magnetically sealed, and I opened it and, tried to see if it would kind of open it itself. If it was open a little, it just wouldn't budge. So that was another fascinating thing. So
You see the difference between you and I, though, right there, William. As soon as, your buddy said they don't want us here, that would have been okay with me. I would have been gone. Crossing the border in Canada.
That's funny.
But now you stuck around.
Well, but Shane's the type of guy where, he's so in tune with this stuff that they tend to hide from him. He's been into places that had poltergeists and these parasites, these negative things, and they'll hide from them. It's almost like if they know their game, that they're not.
You're powerless.
Yeah, that they know that you got their number. So, and I think that's another function of us thinking, quote unquote, pure evil, when in reality, I don't think it's quite that way.
www.nightfrightshow.com, www.nightfrightshow.com. Folks, you're going to want to get this book, obviously. If you're not creeped out by the stories as it is, he goes into far more detail in the book. William J. Hall's our guest tonight. The book is called The Haunted House Diaries, the true story of a quiet, not so quiet, Connecticut town in the center of a paranormal mystery. Now, what's gone on there? There's ghosts, there's aliens, there's holes in space and time, and it all seems to converge in this one singular haunted house. As a matter of fact, Ed and Lorraine Warren, and everybody knows those guys, have been there, and they dubbed it Ghost Central. So this is incredible, the stuff that's going on. What's next for you? I've got to ask you, this seems to be escalating for you and becoming, I feel like you're getting deeper and deeper and deeper into it. Do you ever unnerve yourself and say, am I being drawn into this thing? Am I being sucked in? And do I want to go down this road or down this rabbit hole?
No, I enjoy it. I've always been inquisitive and a curious child. And, when I was a kid and your Geller was big, I sat there with a spoon in my room for 4 hours trying to bend it. So, I'm an idiot, So, of course, when I could, when I couldn't bend it, I said, "Oh, that's it. He's a fraud," because I'd be able to bend it. So but that's the way I was.
Well, you have to rub it.
So I was always a curious. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I wasn't convinced. I was a kid. I said, if it was going to bend, I would have bent it. But it was much easier when I used trickery to do it. But no, I was always curious, and I think I'm very comfortable going down this rabbit hole, so to speak. And maybe I wouldn't be, but having such people around me as Paul and Ben Eno and Shane Serway and Mark D'Antonio, I think I think by understanding the paranormal, by not looking at it as, everything's a demon kind of thing, I think you gain less fear, I guess, by understanding the way. We don't know, of course, everything it is, but there is some things we know about how it works. And so I think, those things, I think make you a little it a little easier. I mean, the UFO part, I guess you can argue maybe it doesn't, because who wants to be abducted, etc. I mean, that part doesn't make it easier. But I mean, as far as I think, now of course, then people ask, well, what if it was your own house? How would you react, or would you be scared then? And I mean, I wasn't scared being in this house at all. I mean, I went in the basement myself, and I wasn't scared. I wasn't scared one bit. I think I would have been, though, if I didn't have, the kind of that background and mentoring by, Paul and Ben and the other folks and Shane as to how this stuff works and what and what it is and what it isn't, or what we think it is and what we know it definitely isn't all the time. I think that prepared me well. Of course, what if it was my own house? I still want to be honest and say, who knows, because, it's really hard to predict what you would do. I do know that most people that I know that have been in haunted houses don't easily leave their house, even though that's kind of what we think, Hollywood-wise. But then again, I guess it depends what's happening, right? And what is happening and how you interpret it. Banging on the walls could be banging on the walls, or they could be demons, so it really depends, I think, on how you interpret it. But I would like to think if it happened in my own house, it would simply be book 3, but but who knows, it could be, Bill running out of his house, who knows. I would like to say that that I know better now, but I'll be honest, who knows. I guess you can't really answer that question unless it happens. But to answer your question, I don't really know what's for me next. I'm actually looking for what I could do next that's worthy of a book and that could contribute something, because of course that's the big thing, of course, is not wanting to put out junk and wanting it to be something that you feel is really worthy of it. And I felt the Haunted House Diaries had that paranormal crossroads, paranormal flat part to it.
Let me throw this out to you. I was going to ask you this question anyways, because I wanted to find out more about your magic and stuff. I had a woman on by the name of Christine Corda who went through a real Roman Catholic exorcism. As a 3-year-old, she was involved with black magic in a ritual ceremony and things like that. Do you feel there's authenticity behind black magic?
I was explained it best by Shane, and I would tend to agree. He explained that black magic, and so does Native American rituals, but not because their beliefs are correct, but because if you are able to open a portal or find a portal and you're able to give attention to those things, then you can connect with those things. Just like Native Americans would go to these areas with water and the flow of water. They would know how to find the portals. They wouldn't open them, but they'd know how to find them. And then they would be able to talk to the spirits and invoke spirits to guard the land and stuff like that. But it didn't mean that their religion was correct. It just meant that their religion was effective as a tool. Kind of like a Ouija board itself isn't evil, but it could be a tool that, of course, could cause could give you the attention towards those things that end up being, bad. So, my best guess would be that it's not, quote unquote, or, a legitimate, religion with the religion itself having the power, but the fact that the attention is, drawn to these things that, are able to commune. If that makes sense to you.
It does. It's a perfect answer, actually. As an extension of that, do you think there is an inherent danger when, everybody seems to be ghost hunting instead of playing softball on the weekends these days? It's become a real hobby. Do you think there's a danger for hobbyists taking it too lightly?
Yeah, I mean, I'm confident and not afraid because I know these things can't hurt me. But on the other end, they can ruin your life. I know that sounds like double talk, but I mean, psychologically, they could ruin your life. So I think if you don't know what you're dealing with, and if you're not in the right mindset, they certainly can psychologically ruin you. And we probably all have stories where that's happened to people. And so, yeah, I think there is a danger in that, and the danger might be remote. Because probably maybe 98% of the time it doesn't happen, but there definitely are plenty of cases out there where people thought that they were curious and did the things, and they weren't really psychologically ready for it, and it ended up bad. Because again, these things can't hurt you, but they can hurt you if you let them, which means they can ruin your life. So it's yeah, I agree with you. It's a tough thing to dabble in.
William, we're going to have to wrap up now, but I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and telling us these great stories and writing these two great books. Folks, The Haunted House Diaries, the one we've been speaking about tonight, the true story of a quiet Connecticut town in the center of a paranormal mystery, and the other one that's in our archives, www.nightfrightshow.com, is The World's Most Haunted House, both written by our illustrious and wonderful author tonight, Mr. William J. Hall. Thank you so much, William.
Oh, thank you. It's been great talking to you again, Brent.
As well as you, my friend. Stay in touch for the next book.
Oh, will do.
Okay. Thank you very much, William. I'm Brent Holland from Night
Thank
Fright.
you, and thanks to all the listeners.
Thank you, my friend. We'll see you all next time.
You're listening to Night Fright and your host, Brent Holland. The time is now. Your voice on the guard for paranormal and conspiracy.
The JFK Assassination, the definitive book by Brent Holland. From inside the Oval Office to Daily Plaza, first-person witness accounts. Order yours right now. NightFrightShow.com.